The smell of burnt rubber and whiskey hung thick in the air outside Iron River Diner, a roadside joint where Chrome Dreams stopped for coffee. Under the flicker of its red neon sign, a line of Harley engines cooled, ticking in rhythm with the night. Before we start this story, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Also, please subscribe to the channel. It will help us to bring you more inspiring stories every day. Inside, a group of bikers laughed over jukebox blues. Leather vests glinting with the insignia of the Iron Serpent's MC, the door creaked open and the laughter died. Standing there was a small boy, maybe 8, his shirt torn, his face streaked with dirt. He didn't cry. He just said, steady as a gunshot, "My stepdad's gonna sell me." The room went silent. Every man there froze mid-breath, eyes locking on the boy like they'd just heard a ghost speak. The biggest biker, a grizzled veteran called Bear, pushed his chair back slow. "Come here, kid," he said, voice rough but careful. The boy didn't move. His hands shook as he held up a small pendant, a winged skull with faded letters, Ha, the same emblem stitched on Bear's chest. The pendant swung like a silent accusation. Bear's gaze hardened. The other bikers exchanged looks, confusion, disbelief, then a kind of reverent dread. "Where'd you get that?" Bear asked quietly. The boy swallowed. "My dad had it. Before he died." His voice cracked on the word. The name on Bear's patch, Hell's Angels Nomads, caught the boy's eye, and something flickered inside him, recognition buried in years of fear. Bear knelt so they were eye level. "What's your name, kid?" "Tyler," he whispered. Tyler Grant. The name hit Bear like a kick to the chest. Grant. There'd only ever been one Grant who wore that pendant. Luke Grant, Bear's old road brother who died in a fire 6 years ago. The room shifted from noise to stillness. A younger biker, Diesel, muttered, "Ain't no way," but Bear's eyes said otherwise. He turned to Tyler again. "Where's your stepdad now?" The boy's voice trembled. "At home. He said someone's paying for me tonight." Bear stood slowly, every joint cracking like thunder. "Not tonight, they ain't." Outside, the engines roared back to life. Bear strapped on his gloves, motioned for Diesel and Mako, the club's road captain. "We ride," he said simply. Tyler clutched the pendant in his small hand, unsure whether to run or trust these men with skulls on their jackets. Bear caught his hesitation and crouched low again. "Kid," he said softly, "that patch ain't just for show. Your dad earned it, and so did we. You're safe with us now." Tyler nodded, lip trembling. Diesel handed him a leather vest too big for his frame, but the boy slipped it on anyway. It hung off him like a promise. The convoy rolled out of the diner lot, headlamps cutting through the highway, dark. Tyler rode behind Bear, arms locked around his waist. Every mile felt like leaving hell behind. Bear's mind raced. The fire, the funeral, the promise he'd made at Luke's grave. "If you ever had a kid, brother, I'd find him." He hadn't thought he'd ever have to keep that promise. Until tonight. The trailer park sat at the far edge of Denton County, half buried in weeds and rust. Bear killed the engine and listened. Country radio murmured from one cracked window. Somewhere a dog barked and was silenced fast. Mako scouted the back while Diesel stayed with the kid. Bear's eyes narrowed at the single light still burning inside a dented silver trailer. He motioned for quiet and stepped up onto the porch. Through the thin walls came the sound of a man's voice, slurred, mean. "You better have my cash ready," the stepfather barked into a phone. "I'll hand the boy over soon as I see green." Bear's jaw clenched. He signaled the others, then pounded the door once. "Open up, Rick," he said. Silence. Then a shuffle, a mutter, a lock turning. The man who opened the door had the face of someone who'd made too many bad deals, eyes yellow, teeth worse. "Who the hell are you?" he sneered. Bear just stepped forward. "Someone your debts don't cover anymore." Rick's smirk faltered when he saw the others step out of the shadows. Diesel, Mako, and a dozen angels, silent as reapers. The cigarette slipped from his mouth. "Look, I don't want no trouble." he started, hands half raised. Bear moved past him like he wasn't there and turned toward the living room. A torn couch, beer cans, empty wallet. No sign of mercy anywhere. He looked back at Rick. "You plan to sell a kid?" Rick's eyes darted. "That ain't your business," Bear's voice dropped. "You made it ours when you touched a brother's blood." The sound that followed wasn't loud, just one punch, clean and controlled. Rick hit the wall, wheezing. Mako caught him by the collar. "You don't get to breathe the same air as the boy you tried to trade." Diesel stepped forward, eyes like steel. "Where's the buyer?" Rick coughed, shaking. "Old rail yard, east side, midnight." Bear nodded once, turned toward Tyler standing in the doorway. "Stay with us, son. We finish what your old man started, protecting his own." The old rail yard looked like a graveyard for steel. Cargo crates, rusted tanks, and forgotten machinery stretched across the dirt lot like bones under moonlight. Bear's convoy rolled in silent, headlights dimmed. The only sound was the soft tick of cooling engines and the wind brushing against chrome. Tyler sat in the back seat of the van, Diesel keeping a watchful eye. The boy stared through the crack in the door, heart pounding. He didn't fully understand what was about to happen, only that these men weren't afraid of monsters like Rick. Bear crouched beside the tailgate, checking the Glock under his vest. "He's going to bring buyers," he said quietly. "We'll let them talk first." Mako scanned the lot with binoculars. "2 trucks incoming," he muttered. 5 men, maybe 6. Looks like real scum, the kind that deal in shadows. Bear's face hardened. "We handle it clean. No blood if they walk away." Diesel chuckled darkly. "And if they don't?" Bear zipped his jacket. "Then we remind them what angels really do." The first truck rolled in, headlights bouncing off puddles of oil and steel. Rick climbed out, nervous energy spilling through every twitch of his jaw. He hadn't expected an audience. "Where's the buyer?" he muttered. From the truck, a man in a grey suit emerged, out of place among rust and dirt. His shoes shined, his eyes didn't. He looked Rick over like a farmer appraising livestock. "This the merchandise?" Rick swallowed. "Yeah, healthy kid. Blonde hair, blue eyes. 10 grand and he's yours," the man smirked. 10? He's not even trained. Behind them, a slow rumble began, not from the trucks, but the rows of motorcycles hidden beyond the gate. The buyers froze. Bear stepped out from the shadows, cigarette glowing faintly. "The deal's off, gentlemen." The man in grey turned, eyes narrowing. "Who the hell are you?" Bear's voice came low, controlled, lethal. "The kind of men who clean up trash others pretend not to see." Diesel flicked his knife open with a quiet snick. Mako grinned. "Welcome to confession, boys." The standoff stretched, thick with tension. The man in grey's hand twitched toward his coat, but before he could reach, Bear's voice cracked the night. "Don't!" His tone wasn't loud, but it carried the kind of authority that made the air itself stop moving. "You draw, you die." Rick shifted uneasily, realizing too late that the game had changed, and he wasn't holding any cards. "I didn't mean—" he started, but Bear cut him off. "You meant every damn word you said on that call." He nodded toward Diesel, who tossed Rick's phone onto the ground. "The last text still open. Got the boy. Bring cash." The man in grey's expression soured. "You're interfering with business that doesn't concern you." Bear stepped closer. "That kid's father rode with us. You touch his blood, it's everyone's business." Mako's boot hit the side of the man's truck, denting it deep. "So here's your deal," Bear said quietly. "You forget you ever came here. You disappear." The man hesitated, then made the wrong choice. He reached. The flash came quick, and a single spark of motion, a metallic click, then chaos. Diesel's knife pinned the man's wrist to the side of the truck, before his gun even cleared leather. The man screamed, dropped the weapon. Bear moved like thunder, slamming him against the door. "You think kids are something you buy?" he growled. "Not tonight." Rick stumbled backward, panicking. "Please, I didn't mean to—" Bear's fist found his gut, folding him in half. "You sold your soul the moment you put a price on his name." Mako yanked the gun away, tossing it into the dirt. "Let the cops find it later," he muttered. The buyers scrambled to retreat, hands up, faces pale. "We're done!" one shouted. Bear pointed toward the gate. "Then ride out and never look back." They didn't argue. Within seconds, engines roared, tires spat gravel, and their trucks vanished into the darkness. The silence that followed wasn't peace, it was judgment. Diesel looked to Bear. "What about Rick?" Bear's stare was colder than the metal around them. "He's got one last thing to hear." They dragged Rick to the center of the yard. His knees hit dirt, breath ragged. Bear stood before him, boots planted, jacket glinting in the weak floodlight. "You remember Luke Grant?" Rick looked confused. "Who?" Bear's voice turned sharp. "The man whose son you tried to sell." He nodded toward the van, where Tyler watched through the window, trembling but alive. "That boy carries more honor in one breath than you've earned your whole worthless life." Rick's lips quivered. "Please, I was desperate. Debt, bills." Bear stepped closer until they were face to face. "Then you should have sold your truck." "Not your kid." Rick looked away, tears streaking through grime. Bear leaned in, voice low enough to cut. "If I ever hear you touched another child, I'll make sure the dirt remembers your name." He turned to Diesel. "Drop him near the sheriff's station." Diesel nodded. "With the phone?" "With the phone," Bear said. "Let the law see his confessions for once." Tyler watched as the bikers walked back to their bikes. He didn't know what justice meant, but tonight it had a sound. Chrome and thunder. The town of Red Hollow slept quietly as the convoy of Harleys rolled through its main street before dawn. Their engines hummed low, disciplined, united, not wild chaos, but a brotherhood's heartbeat. At the center of it all, Tyler sat behind Diesel on the lead bike, his small arms wrapped tight around the man's vest. He'd fallen asleep that way, face buried against leather that smelled of smoke and road dust. Bear watched in the mirror, a faint softness breaking through his usual stone expression. They reached the clubhouse, an old converted barn marked Hell's Angels, Red Hollow Chapter. The sun was just brushing the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of gold and ash. As Diesel parked, Bear gently lifted Tyler from the seat. "You're home now, kid?" he said quietly. Tyler blinked awake, dazed. "Home," he murmured. "Yeah," Bear said, setting him down. "Your dad helped build this place. He'd want you here till we figure the rest out." Tyler looked up at the emblem on the door, the same winged skull as his pendant, and for the first time in his life, he smiled. Inside, the clubhouse was warm and alive. The scent of bacon mixed with engine grease, and sunlight cut through the open shutters, landing on worn pool tables and a wall covered in photos. Tyler's eyes lingered on one frame, a younger Bear, Diesel, and a man with the same eyes as him, Luke Grant, his father. He reached up and touched the edge of the glass. "That's him, ain't it?" he asked. Bear nodded slowly. "Your old man was family here. The kind that never backed down, never broke a promise." He poured coffee into a chipped mug and slid it to the counter for himself, then handed Tyler a glass of milk instead. "He was my best friend," Bear continued. "We called him Road Saint, not because he was perfect, but because he had this way of doing the right thing, even when it hurt like hell." Tyler stared at the photo. "Did he die bad?" Bear's jaw tightened, then eased. "He died saving a woman and her kid from a wreck. Never made it home that night." Tyler lowered his gaze. "Guess heroes don't always wear capes." Bear smiled sadly. "No, kid. Sometimes they wear leather." Later that morning, the bikers gathered around the long wooden table. Diesel, Mako, and Torch, the club's mechanic, discussed Rick's arrest. "Cops took him in," Diesel said. "Found his phone with every message still on it. He won't be seeing daylight again." Bear nodded but stayed quiet. He looked toward the doorway, where Tyler sat on the steps, tracing circles on the floor with his shoe. The kid didn't talk much, but when he did, every word carried weight. Mako leaned back. "So what now, Prez?" Bear looked up, his eyes distant. "Now we teach the boy what his name really means." He stood and motioned for Tyler. "Come on, son. Time you saw where your dad found peace." Tyler followed him out back. Behind the clubhouse was a small patch of earth bordered by stones and wild grass. Rows of steel crosses stood there, each etched with names and road nicknames. At the far end was one that read, Luke Road St. Grant, Ride Eternal. Bear knelt, placing his hand on the cross. He was the best of us. You carry him every time you breathe. Tyler knelt beside Bear, silent. The morning wind tugged at his hair. He didn't cry. He just looked at the cross like it was something alive. Did he know about me? He whispered. Bear's throat tightened. He knew he was going to be a dad. Told us the night before, that last run. Tyler pressed his palm against the cold metal. He never got to hold me. Bear's hand rested on his shoulder, firm but gentle. Maybe not in life, he said, but he's holding you now, kid. Every mile we ride, every road we take, he's there. Tyler blinked hard, fighting the ache in his chest. Bear stood voice steady again. You're part of this family now, and we don't leave family behind. From inside the clubhouse came the sound of laughter, engines, and a new rhythm of belonging. Tyler turned, watching Diesel polish his bike and Torch grease a chain. For the first time, the noise didn't scare him. It sounded like safety, like the hum of something real. He looked back at the cross and whispered, I'll make you proud, Dad. That afternoon, Bear took Tyler for his first ride. The highway shimmered under the summer sun, a long ribbon stretching through endless fields. Tyler sat in front of him, hands gripping the bars, wind whipping through his hair. The world blurred into color and sound. Blue sky, silver chrome, laughter echoing from behind as the other angels followed close. Bear shouted over the roar, You feel that? Tyler nodded. Feels like flying. Bear grinned. That's freedom, kid. That's what your old man lived for. They pulled off near an old overlook, the valley below glowing gold. Diesel handed the boy a soda while Bear parked his Harley. When I was your age, Bear said, sitting beside him, I thought bikers were just outlaws. Turns out we're just broken men, trying to keep the world from breaking others. Tyler leaned against him, tired but peaceful. The convoy rested, engines ticking cool. For the first time, the boy who once whispered for help now sat in the open, under a wide, forgiving sky, not a victim anymore, but a legacy reborn. Days passed at the clubhouse, and Tyler's world began to change. The shadows under his eyes faded, replaced by curiosity. He followed the bikers everywhere, watching Torch rebuild carburetors, learning how Diesel tuned an engine by sound alone. The men didn't treat him like a project. They treated him like one of their own. You listen, you learn, Bear said one afternoon, handing him a rag. A bike talks if you pay attention. Tyler smiled shyly. What's it saying now? Bear grinned. That she needs love and patience, just like people. In the evenings, the angels sat around a crackling fire, swapping road tales. Tyler would curl up beside Diesel's jacket, listening like the stories were bedtime songs written in chrome and courage. He wasn't scared anymore. He was becoming part of something sacred, a family stitched together by scars, engines, and second chances. The world had broken him, but these men were teaching him how to ride through the wreckage. One morning a local sheriff arrived, hat in hand, eyes uncertain. Heard about the boy, he said quietly. Rick Danner's case went federal. Trafficking rings busted. You folks did good. Bear leaned on his Harley, expression unreadable. We didn't do it for thanks. The sheriff nodded, understanding. The system failed that kid before. Maybe this time it won't. He paused, looking at Tyler, who was polishing a chrome mirror. He yours now? Bear's gaze softened. He's ours. The sheriff smiled faintly. Guess that's better than any foster home. As he left, Bear crouched beside Tyler. You know what that badge means? He asked. The boy shrugged. Rules, Bear nodded. Rules keep people safe. But sometimes it's the outlaws who save what the rules forget. Tyler looked up, eyes bright. Like my dad. Bear nodded slowly. Exactly like your dad. That night, the boy slept soundly for the first time in his life. No fear, no nightmares. Just the steady hum of bikes outside like guardian angels on patrol. By late summer, Tyler had found his rhythm. He helped Torch fix flats, swept the floors, and learned to recognize the unique sound of every member's ride. The men started calling him Little Saint, a name that made Bear smile every time. One afternoon, Diesel brought him a helmet, matte black with the club's emblem etched in silver. "It's yours," he said. "Every rider's got to earn his wings. You already have." Tyler touched the skull symbol, his reflection warped in the paint. "Does this mean I'm one of you now?" Diesel winked. "Kid, you've been one of us since the night you walked into that diner." They spent the evening teaching him how to balance on a dirt bike, Bear jogging beside him as the boys' laughter echoed across the field. When he finally got it right, the whole crew cheered. For the first time in a long while, the ghosts of Red Hollow weren't chasing anyone. They were riding free. That night, Bear sat alone on the porch, looking at the photo of Luke Grant again. The sound of Tyler's laughter drifted through the window, mingling with the steady hum of crickets. Diesel joined him, beer in hand. "You think he'll remember this life?" he asked. Bear nodded slowly. "He'll remember the noise, the smell of oil, the way the wind feels when you're not afraid anymore." He exhaled, eyes misting slightly. His old man wanted him to grow up knowing that freedom ain't about running away. It's about having somewhere worth staying. Diesel clinked bottles with him. "You gave him that." Bear shook his head. "We all did." Inside, Tyler slept beneath a patched leather jacket too big for him. On the nightstand sat his pendant, the one his father left behind, now polished, shining faintly under the warm light, resting beside a photo of the angels that morning. A new family framed in chrome and hope. At sunrise, the crew gathered at the ridge overlooking the town. Tyler stood in the center wearing his helmet and vest proudly. Bear started his Harley, the others following until the air trembled with thunder. He looked down at the boy and said, "You ready for your first real ride?" Tyler grinned, heart racing. "I've been ready forever." Bear lifted him onto the tank, Tyler's small hands gripping the bars. The convoy rolled out together, sun spilling over the horizon, shadows stretching long behind them. Every roar, every flash of chrome was a hymn to the lost and the found. They didn't ride for revenge or reputation. They rode for redemption, for a promise kept. And as the town faded behind them, Tyler looked up at the endless road ahead and whispered, "Thank you, Dad." Bear heard it through the wind and smiled. "He hears you, kid, always. So if you believe that every child deserves protection, that loyalty still matters, and that love can roar louder than hate, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and ring the bell icon. Because out here on the open road, stories like this one remind us, family isn't blood. It's the ones who ride through hell to find you.